everything to do with planes, forget about 9/11, it's flat. They're flying perpendicular to sea level at a flight level that's called out by ground control, who monitor them on radar that's flat. The miles that are used for the distances are flat. Everything about flying requires Earth to be flat. The measurements and the deviations with respect to those measurements, the altitude acquisitions that are called out from ground control are all reference to sea level, right? There's no getting away from how flat flight is. But if you can make flat Earth suddenly be about whether or not planes existed at all on 9/11, you're like, okay, well, that's nothing to do with the subject, is it? When certain individuals hear the terminology flat Earth, they relate to it in the way that it's been peddled out into the masses. Now, that is to create a community called flat earthers that are, generally speaking, conspiratorial in nature, that aren't focused on Earth measurements, and juxtapose them or put them in opposition to people who have inserted a high degree of value upon measurements of a flat Earth that extrapolate out into heliocentrism, so that they can believe that there's a sky vacuum or that the ground's curving away, producing a tangent point below the measured flat surface level or whatever, right? When those two groups can be put in opposition to one another, you can have the fart-sniffing dweebs come out as the intellectually more superior in the mind's eye of the average audience member, and the flat earther be perceived to be a conspiratorial guy who's talking about a conspiratorial subject, because the world not being spherical is a conspiratorial subject if the consensus believes that the world is spherical. You can juxtapose it in opposition to the obviously accepted to be sphericity of Earth's surface, and how certain people who call themselves flat earthers say Earth's not spherical, like we all know it is. That's how they create the idea of flat Earth being a conspiracy. Now, that can then operate in isolation over here to people who actually measure Earth, people who are flying planes, making maps, measuring the deviation in the altitude with respect to sea level, measuring sea level itself, measuring earthquakes, measuring anything to do with Earth's surface in any respect, because they all absolutely require at a fundamental level that Earth be flat. That's how it's being measured. Any deviation from its flatness will be described from the flat measurements of the flat miles that you can describe a deviation from. Ergo, the principles and axioms that are used in Earth measurement are and can only be flat, but you can't have people who want the world to be believed to be spherical have any association with the idea of something different to how Earth is measured. So Earth being measured in linear distance, parallel to an eye level, for example, doesn't include the words flat Earth. So you can have that segregated over here and set in opposition to people, like I say, who've ascribed value to the notion that what boats are falling over a horizon when you calculate a spherical Earth based on flat Earth measurements, and then ignore them. Ignore the flat Earth measurements that you've produced this idea that there's a geometric tangent point horizon for boats to fall over, and argue tooth and nail with people who say, no, boats don't fall over the geometric horizon. If we see the bottom of this boat, we're seeing too far compared to a ball and its limitations. So you've got this controlled opposition narrative where you've got people who want to believe there's a sky vacuum, rockets, your average 12-year-old boy's bullshit, set in opposition to people who say, no, that isn't true. Like I say, leaving the geographers, map makers, cartographers, builders, surveyors, planners, people who are navigating the ocean or sky, leaving them to be able to launch a rocket missile that's used in defensive strategies and plan its trajectory with respect to horizontal linear mile distances when you're planning the arc of a ballistic missile or something to blow people up with. All of those things can then function in isolation and off the, no pun intended, radar of the people saying it's just not spherical. I would like to perceive my book that's about to come out as that sort of bridge where your average normie can separate the facts in the matter when it comes to Earth and its measurement from the propagandized controlled opposition version of flat Earth, which is a conspiratorial group of people who say Earth's not spherical. There's plenty of people out there that say, I don't want to call myself a flat earther. And it's because the controlled narrative of flat Earth is dirty. It's perceived as bad by your general normie. He looks at somebody who says that they're a flat earther like they're an idiot. Now, that's engineered to be the case. Like, there's a backwards nature to that particular person. And that particular person, if they take in earnest the notions of being a flat earther, will start to investigate heliocentrism. whistling immediately past the flat Earth prerequisite measurements used to achieve it, like their opponents will also do. Everybody in the flat Earth debate ignores how flat Earth gets measured. That's how it's been engineered to be. And your average flat earther is perceived to be stupid, therefore societally, or even within the community, they don't want to be perceived to be the controlled opposition's version of what a flat earther is, because it's not a good thing to be a flat earther. Now, knowing that you can map, chart, sail, fly, build on Earth as a flat plane is a prerequisite of building on, flying on, navigating or mapping Earth. But it's like I say, it doesn't include the two terms sandwiched together, flat Earth, when you describe how flat Earth is measured.
Flat Earth's a measurement, isn't it? It's as simple as that.
Yeah, the reality of flat Earth is just geography. It's just the measurement of Earth's surface in miles or kilometres. And any description of Earth's measurements will deviate from that horizontal plane of reference that's also got its own measurement called sea level. Mean sea level is a measurement of an average of the level nature of the oceans that connect all of the land together. So you can describe how high or low the land is with respect to a common reference that has been measured. So then you can fly planes above it or sail across it or map it, chart it, describe the deviations of hills and valleys with respect to it. All of those things fundamentally rely upon Earth being measured as a flat plane and referenced as a flat plane. When you detail anything that deviates from it, it'll be axiomatically perpendicular to a flat plane. So everything that's describing Earth in its geographical terminology is flat. Like I say, if you want the opposition to a globe Earth religious belief to be something other than the actual measurements and reality of Earth's flat surface that's been measured, you need to make it into a conspiratorial subject. You need to make the people that look at that subject be those conspiratorial souls, and then have them fight with people who are of low value, who've invested heavily in their fart-sniffing, heliocentric, worthless information, while they think they're fighting for justice, peace and the American way, with Batman logos on their T-shirts.
What was the first thing you came to after Flat Earth?
Immediately after I came to Flat Earth, like the literal next subject was the Mandela effect and clone centres.
Yep.
That was the first thing that was put in front of me. And then when I started talking about flat Earth with people, the next thing that got put in front of me that was completely alien to me was 9/11 truth. The question I was asked was, are you a no-plane guy? What the bloody hell are you babbling on? And I'm like, well, the planes in 9/11, they're all CGI. You're like, what? What's this got to do with flat Earth? Now, in reality, the plane, its trajectory, the miles, the height, the altitude, everything to do with planes, forget about 9/11, it's flat. They're flying perpendicular to sea level at a flight level that's called out by ground control, who monitor them on radar that's flat. The miles that are used for the distances are flat. Everything about flying requires Earth to be flat. The measurements and the deviations with respect to those measurements, the altitude acquisitions that are called out from ground control are all referenced to sea level, right? There's no getting away from how flat flight is. But if you can make flat Earth suddenly be about whether or not planes existed at all on 9/11, you're like, okay, well, that's nothing to do with the subject, is it? That's what you need. Flat Earth to become a conspiracy like the 9/11 truthers, or like the Mandela effect truthers, or like whatever, the Sandy Hook people, and then you can erase them from all existence if they talk about that.